Welcome back to the Veterans Radio Show. I hope you're having a wonderful day and thank you so much for tuning in. On our Veterans Radio Show, we talk with heroes in action, making it happen for our veteran community. And I am your host, Dali Rivera, and I want to welcome you to our live audience on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Amazon Live, and of course, our podcast listeners. We appreciate you and your service. This is the Veterans Radio Show, and without you, we would not be able to broadcast this segment. So hit that subscribe button and please share this episode with another veteran. And let's hear your thoughts in the comments during the show, because we love seeing your questions coming in while we are live, and we can also answer your questions. So I'm really excited today to present to you Kelly Bagla with Bagla Law Firm. As if you've been watching or listening to the show for a while, you know who she is, but she is San Diego's corporate and business attorney based in Carlsbad, California. Welcome to the show, Kelly. How are you?
Fantastic, Dali. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, absolutely. I love speaking with you because you always teach me about things that I should know as an entrepreneur. And sometimes we just don't know what we don't know. So today we're going to be discussing asset protections, right?
Correct. Yes, asset protection. So, Dali, asset protection itself, it it um it can benefit any individual, right? But however, it's got such a bad reputation, and I don't understand why. I think it's because people just don't understand it. As far as why asset protection is needed, and why certain people actually follow through with doing asset protection. Now, asset protection, and a quick story. Asset protection. There was a client of mine that hired us to do their corporation work and the corporate work, and the wife of the client went onto the website and she saw that we do business formation and asset protection law firm. The next thing I know, she's saying, "I'm sorry, we can't use you." I said, "Well, what just happened? What's going on?" She goes, "Well, you do asset protection." I said, "Yes, that's a good thing, right?" And she goes, "Well, no, it's not a good thing because we want everyone to be paying their taxes." I said, "You misunderstand. This is asset protecting, not asset hiding. There's a huge difference between the two, right?" So, as far as assets go, Dali, assets can be physical assets, it can be a home, it can be land, it can be expensive cars, it can be property, and it actually can be businesses as well. The interests that are being held by business owners, that's an asset. An asset can also be intangible, such as intellectual property, patents, trademarks, copyrights. All of that is considered assets. And so when we're talking about asset protection, we're talking about a business owner that's worked really, really hard, spent a lot of money trying to accumulate and become a successful business owner. Now the business owner has some assets. They've got a home, maybe they've got funds for the kids to go to college, and these types of people can be targets, very, very easy targets for potential lawsuits. And lawyers in California in particular, they're sharks when it comes to that. And so when we say asset protecting, we can do both domestic asset protection, meaning that we can actually, one, create a living trust for the business owner. So that way we know if something happens to the business owner, if they pass away,
Mhm.
then their interest in that business doesn't have to go through probate. And I think I've spoken about probate, ad nauseum on the show. And but putting that interest in a trust protects it from going through probate. So now you've just saved your company 20% in costs and probably 2 or 3 years in the lineup of waiting to be heard in court. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Wow.
So asset protection can be a living trust, a domestic living trust in the USA. It can also be a irrevocable living trust, meaning that you cannot change it, which protects against lawsuits. An irrevocable trust. Then there are other ways, such as real estate investors, and we help them a lot because they will have multiple properties. And the number one mistake that they make is they will put all these properties in one LLC.
Mhm.
Now, and then they use that one LLC, Dali, to engage with tenants. So if something happens on the property, the tenant sued, they're going to sue the LLC that holds all these properties, and all of those properties are up for grabs. So when it comes to real estate asset protection, we make sure that we diverse, we put properties in their individual LLCs. We create other settings where the property itself is protected from potential lawsuits. So that's also considered asset protection. And then the ultimate asset protection would be overseas, offshore asset protection. And that obviously requires a lengthier conversation. And it's not for everyone, but these are the ways that somebody could start to protect their hard-earned assets, right?
Yeah. Oh, that is a lot. So I have many questions. The first one is, um, so can somebody contest that asset protection? Because you've mentioned that it can be. So this is part of a will and trust, right? That's what it
It's a
is.
separate category. It
Okay.
falls, and so asset protection is like the big parent. Um, let's just say it's the big topic, right? Is asset protection. Underneath that, these are options on how you can protect assets, and a living trust with a will is one of those options.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, and this is fresh because I was just watching a movie where, people are getting the will is being read, and this person gets this, that, and people sometimes get upset and they want to contest that, whatever is being left to them. So, is there really any ground there, or does that really depend on how the attorney prepared the documents?
It's a bit of both. Even if the attorney prepares the documents and they are literally bulletproof, you ran through the ringer, they've been tried and true, and they are absolutely bulletproof. Even those documents can be challenged, right? But what's the successful outcome of that? So is the person that's challenging any of the asset protection setup, are they, one, they obviously have to have money to challenge this, because there isn't going to be any attorney that's going to take this on contingency. And two, it's a long process. What's their standing in this? What are they suing for? What are they trying to get to, right? So yes, we're trying to create as many barriers and put stops, solid stops in front of people that literally just want to sue for the sake of suing.
Right, right. Because I feel like when people do that, they're kind of showing a sense of entitlement because really, nobody owes you anything. I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, look, make your own money. I'm
Exactly.
not leaving you anything. It's a lie, but I want them to think that they're not going to get anything.
Right, right, yeah.
So my other question is, when we're preparing all these documentations, sometimes we forget what assets are. So you gave us a really great breakdown. Is there a checklist somewhere that we can find, like the list of things that we should think about and annotate to have it ready before we get to meet with the attorney?
I think in general, usually when you do meet with an attorney, you might want to just write down any type of start off with what's in the home. Okay, so if you have a home, that's an asset. You
Mhm.
have some cars, those are assets. Even though you might have a mortgage on the home, it's still an asset because it has equity as well. Also, you might want to start listing out some jewelry that you may have. All of these are assets. You might want to list out maybe you're a partial owner in a lot in a different county or a different state. That's an asset that you need to protect as well. And the attorney will definitely go through a list of a very involved list of what assets potentially could be. But just start off with the ones that are physical assets. And then from there, you can always talk about, well, do you own any NFTs, right? That's an asset
Absolutely.
too, Dali. And that's digital. And all of those things that you cannot touch, right? You can't feel the intangibles, those are assets as well.
Okay, so you mentioned a few things there about, the home, even though it may have a mortgage, there's still it's an asset, there's value there. So should we get valuations or appraisals or certifications, like say a piece of art, to make sure that it is the actual original? Should we do that before we create all these documents?
Absolutely no, because you can create the valuation of these pieces that you may have, art, jewelry, rare vintage cars or what have you. And highly, highly recommend to some of these uh, in sort of assets that you may have, jewelry, art, a rare car. You do also want to make sure that you have insurance on that
Mm.
and personal assets. And so the insurance company can very easily provide you with a value, or it's really based on, sometimes it's subjective, right? It's not really based on, let me google this and how much is it. It depends on the rarity, it depends on the antiqueness of it. So you can actually put in a value of what you think that piece of property would be worth.
Okay. So how long is it good for? Because I know we've had discussions about patents and things like that. So what about this one? How long does it last?
Asset protection,
Mhm.
it can last a lifetime, and this is usually how um, generational wealth is created as well. So with generational wealth, sometimes when you hear about trust fund babies, right? This is how it's created. So their parents or grandparents or great grandparents worked all of their lives, and they created these assets that can go into someone's, their children's lives, and they set up these. Either their trusts, which are, again, these types will be irrevocable, because upon the passing of that person, then the person that is the beneficiary of those assets could potentially get those assets. There's so many different ways, Dali, to protect assets, and there's so many ways that you can valuate assets as well. And really, I guess the goal for everyone is, yes, make a lot of money, enjoy life. And on paper, you should not be worth anything, right?
Mhm.
Anything should not be in your name on
Mhm.
paper at all. And with all the one percenters, they all, if you see them on paper, they are totally broke because they don't own anything at all. And this is how they stay safe as well. And again, it's not about asset hiding, it's about asset protecting.
Okay. I just heard that the other day, actually on a reel on Instagram, because a football player was getting divorced, and apparently the wife found out that he has nothing because he did exactly what you just explained.
Exactly.
And that was a shock, because you don't hear too much about that. So how strong is the challenge? Say from a spouse, like how much ground does a spouse have to challenge a trust?
So, in states that are community property states, meaning that the entire estate of a married couple would be split half. So, the husband gets half, the wife gets half. That's a community property state. If you're not living in a community property state, then the other states would be a common law rights. Okay. Now, in California, you can literally be living with someone for 100 years. That still does not give you any common law rights to the other person's assets.
Oh wow.
Zero.
Hmm.
You can be married one day and you have rights to that other person's assets, right? That's the difference.
Correct.
And when and again, depending on where the case is being challenged, which state it's being challenged in, there's usually some ground for the spouse to challenge and say, well, I wasn't aware of this, or he or she deliberately hid this from me. But I think the way that case was set up with the athlete that you're talking about, he had it was already in his mom's name, wasn't it? Everything that he owned was in his mom's name, even prior to him meeting his wife. So in that case, the wife is going to get absolutely nothing from that. But I'm sure that they can come up with something else. She was accustomed to living at a certain level, so she'd probably get paid something like that. Challenging, like I said, in California, any attorney is ready to challenge anything. But what is the realistic outcome of something? If it's drafted properly, if it's bulletproof, anything can be challenged, but it's not going to be pierced.
Okay. Wow, this is so interesting. So what about minors? Say, like, for example, this athlete, maybe he had a child and he decided to leave all of his assets to this minor. What happens there? Who makes sure that this child's money or investments or whatever it is he's left with isn't, cheated out of it?
Right. Those types of trusts, again, they can be carved out. So you can have multiple trusts, Dolly. You don't just have to have the one trust for one particular thing. And actually, this is again how generational wealth is created. They will create a trust to put money in just for the minors. And then you can actually hire third parties as fiduciaries to make sure that the child's welfare is being taken care of, they're getting food, shelter, just the general requirements, schooling, all of that. And so you can hire third parties, fiduciaries, to manage the trust on behalf of the child. And once it is a irrevocable trust, cannot change it, cannot amend it, cannot destroy it, that trust will protect the child's future and the assets rather 100%.
Okay, wow, this is so interesting. Okay, I'm gonna kind of pivot a little bit because I realized that I've never asked you how a law firm works, and you have a wonderful law firm. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand on how attorneys work. Like they think, if I call, they're gonna charge me immediately, and I'm not gonna be able to afford it. So people eliminate themselves from the idea or opportunity to even speak to an attorney. So, would you explain to us how law firms work and who would they be dealing with, while they're going on, say, setting up a trust?
What a great question. Thank you, Dali, for bringing that up. Law firms are the traditional law firms. They were always looked at as being very intimidating, being very expensive. And
Hmm.
why would I even need a lawyer? People thought of lawyers if they were going to get sued. That's the only reason that I need a lawyer because I'm getting sued. Times have changed drastically. Nowadays, we actually have our clientele, Dali, the age is from 19 to 92.
Wow.
Okay, so our clientele is getting younger and younger, and I've got 19-year-olds calling attorneys straight. Oh, I'd like to set up a consultation, or I'd like to talk to you about this venture I'm going to go into. And it's really amazing to see that shift now that attorneys aren't so intimidating for people anymore. And what we do here is we love to be extremely transparent and very, very straightforward. And that's exactly how I wanted to run this firm. It's not your traditional law firm, it's a firm where you actually feel uh, heard. You'll get counseled, not in legalese, but in plain English, so you understand. And you'll always know exactly what something is going to cost you. There aren't any hidden fees. And we are always happy to have anyone call. We have 10-15 minute free consultations. It's always a pleasure for us to talk to clients. And even if we I'm happy to give advice over the phone. I don't even charge some of these people just because it's the first time, they don't know what they're doing, they're very excited, so I'll give them a roadmap and I'll say, do this before you come back to me. And so they feel like we are on their side. So I think when it comes to law firms, darling, you really have to look at, has this law firm dealt with what you want to do? Has this law firm, do they have clients like you? How do they deal with them? How quickly can you get a hold of a lawyer? That's the other thing too. If the
Hmm.
lawyer takes a week to get back to you, that's disrespectful, and you need to move on, because now the lawyer is just saying to you, I'm too busy for you. Right? So
Right.
you don't want to sit around and wait for that lawyer. Move on.
Yeah. Ooh, this is so good. Okay, so you mentioned a free 15-minute call. What should people expect? Because some people think, oh, I'm going to get all my answers in 15 minutes. No, you're not. 'Cause-
Correct, exactly. They're not, no. So usually in the 15 minutes, we're exploring, because sometimes they don't even know what they need or what they want to do. So it's okay, I have an idea, and can I do this? So sometimes it's like yes or no. And sometimes it's you're not even there. You need to do steps 3, 4, and 5 before you come back to us. Or it's going to be, can I do this? If you can, this is how we're going to do it. If you cannot, you cannot do it, but you can try this side. So we do give general information, but each case is very different. And so I think the initial call, Dali, is really to get to know each other and see if it's going to be a good fit. Because you, as the consumer, you have to be able to communicate with your attorney, right? And you shouldn't have to bring in another attorney to talk to your attorney and then explain to you what your actual attorney means. So, and it happens all the time. But yes, just make sure that the attorney is accessible. They've done what you're trying to do. They have good reviews. Apparently, reviews are everything nowadays, right?
Oh, yeah.
And feel free to even ask for a referral from the law firm, because again, it goes both ways. It's a two-way street.
That's such good information. I hope that people are really tuning in and sharing that information, because I think that's one of the main reasons why people just stay away. And investing in yourself by hiring an attorney can save so much money. There's another question I have. I have called off, law firms, and say like I want to speak directly to you. I've been told, oh, if you want to speak with Kelly, it's going to be way more, but you can speak to one of her associates. Would you please explain to our public what the difference is between an associate and you, the attorney?
Absolutely, yes. In a traditional law firm, again, you will have the partner. The partner is usually the senior attorney. Underneath the senior attorney, you'll have attorneys that may have practiced 7 years, 8 years, 5 years. And the lower you go down, those attorneys are known as associates. The partner, the owner of the firm, is known as the general partner. The difference is that you might get an associate that is brand new out of school, out of law school, right? Who doesn't really know anything for, let's say, $300 an hour, or you might get an associate that has been practicing for 5 years, and their billable rate might be 450 an hour. And then, if you want to speak with the partner, the owner of the law firm, uh, their price might be, six, seven, 800 an hour. So this is how these traditional law firms work. And with us, again, you'll if anybody calls the office, they'll talk to Sarah. Sarah's usually the first person they'll talk to. Everybody loves Sarah, everyone. She can connect with anyone and anything. And then if Sarah's not there, we have Ravina. She's our newest employee, fantastic young girl. And so they literally have someone that they can talk to. And then if they need to talk to me, then obviously we need to understand what is this pertaining to, because if you just pass the phone through to the attorney and they're asking me, oh, I want to sue someone, we don't do that, right? So it's you just wasted your time, and we can't help you. So there has to be a little barrier in between. But when someone says that, oh, you can talk to a junior associate, right? They're basically just handing you off to someone that doesn't really have the expertise at the level of the partner.
Okay. Ooh, I have so many more questions, but you know what? I'm going to bring in Joe, because he usually has some questions too. So, Joe, are you there?
I am.
Welcome.
Well, and those, like I said earlier, Dali has the she's a questions guru. Uh, and thank you, Kelly, for this information on both ends, on talking about the asset protection as well as how, what does it take and how does it work to talk to an attorney. And that's one of the reasons that I really, really, from the beginning, just loved working with Kelly, because it was just like you said, Dali. You call people, and it's like calling through the black hole. Don't know what's in there. It's like coming into a situation, especially when something is happening to you, and you're hidden by a lawsuit or something like that, and you just have to find an attorney, and then it's just crazy. So, but from the first time I talked to Kelly, it was just very, very personable, also very clear on what the topics were about, no hidden stuff. So it just and so that's why it's amazing, and very and hopefully our audience understands that the value of having Kelly on the show is really priceless. You really cannot find someone like Kelly to provide that information. And besides, Kelly is very familiar with military environment, being married to a veteran, and as well as having a son in the military. So she gets us.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
she's always very open to providing support for our veterans, and always sending people. And sometimes, I don't know where, but Kelly is very always open to talking to them, and so very, very helpful,
Yeah.
extremely. I do have a question there, and it has to do with the asset protection, because um, you're right. You just don't know what you don't know, and having the best way to protect something is not don't let anyone know about it. But once certain things you cannot hide, so you have to show them. But I was talking in my question. It has to do with the revocable and irrevocable trust. And earlier you said, Kelly, that irrevocable trust, you cannot make any changes anymore. It's just like it's set in stone. Is that the case?
Absolutely, yes. And a irrevocable trust that you cannot change, that protects against lawsuits.
Okay.
Because
And
technically, Joe, right, you don't own
mhm,
anything. You're not in charge of your own assets in that trust.
okay. Now, just to have a kind of peace of mind. So, irrevocable trust is managed by a third party. Let's say your law firm, it will be the managing third party, correct? Um,
Correct. Or there's a third party. They're usually called
what
fiduciaries. Yes.
fiduciaries? Okay.
Yes.
So let's say this fiduciary, and all of a sudden you have everything, and on your homes, your money, your accounts, everything is on that particular fiduciary person. So how should someone decide who that third party should be? Because now it's everything is there now, and you cannot do anything about it. How would that work?
Correct, correct. In even before, right, a irrevocable trust is put in place, there's a lot of due diligence that needs to happen. The usually the attorneys that draft irrevocable trusts, they will have connections with these fiduciaries. And keep in mind, Joe, these fiduciaries, they are actually liable to the state. They're overseen by the government, so they shouldn't embezzle and steal, and because everything is oversight. And these fiduciaries, usually they would be from Merrill Lynch, right? It's a massive conglomerate financial institute. They provide fiduciaries, and each and every one of them is vetted. And
Mm,
there's a certain amount that the grantors, or the people that are creating the trust, the trustees, they have a certain amount of living expenses, and so those expenses have to be met, and the fiduciary would know all of this prior to.
mhm,
And if the fiduciary, and at any time, the uh, the trustees, they if they feel that the fiduciary is not keeping up with what they're supposed to be doing, or that they're not abiding by the law, then that can be challenged. You can actually take that fiduciary to court, prove to the judge, and then the judge will go ahead and say, okay, we can remove this fiduciary, but there has to be another one put in, and it cannot be you.
mm.
Mm. Wow. That's good to know too. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's low cases of that because, people get vetted and
Mhm,
all that.
mhm.
But Kelly, this has been so wonderful. I feel like we're so lucky to have you.
Thank you.
That
Thank you.
you come
Thank you
on.
so much.
You have come on here and given us all types of information. So if you all are listening, listen to the previous podcast episodes because she gives advice about information, not advice, about everything.
Thank you,
Yes.
darling. Yes, I
You're welcome.
forgot I
Yes,
didn't say my disclaimer, right? But
That's
everything that
right.
I
right.
said, it's only
Right.
information. It does not create an attorney-client relationship.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
there we go.
Now, talking, and this is just an average. So, if fiduciary has also fees that the trust pays for that, what is the average cost or maintenance fees or for something like that?
Oh, Joe, it really depends. It's not,
Mm,
again, for someone to create an irrevocable trust, they have to have assets, right? They have to be financially secure,
right.
because one, the trust is going to pay for the rest of their life, or maybe theirs and their spouses. plus it's going to be paying for the fees to upkeep this, plus they're paying for the fiduciary too. This can run into the hundreds and thousands of dollars. And that's
Okay.
just the fees for the fiduciary.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So most people
Wow.
have a revocable trust rather than irrevocable trust.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Well,
Well, I think
truly,
so. Is any other aspect of this asset protection that you would like to talk about, and maybe we can bring it on our next show with you?
I think maybe explore some of the offshore asset protection, because that people don't talk about it, and it is quite popular, especially now as well, with the influencers, right? They're younger
Mm,
and younger, and they're becoming multimillionaires. How are they protecting their assets and future? So it'd be nice to maybe explore a little bit into the offshore asset protection part.
okay. Yeah, because I think like even to open a bank account is difficult. Like been in London, and they have a bank that's called Metro, and that's the name of one of our companies. And it's like, oh, this would be cool to have a bank account called Metro for
Right.
Metro. And but it wasn't that clear cut. So that would be a great topic for us to cover next time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
yes,
All right.
definitely.
Well, Dali, back to you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you for coming in and asking questions as well. And Kelly, as always, we are so grateful that you come on here and you give us information. Please tell us again one more time where people can find you. And yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much. Baglalaw.com, BAGLALAW.com. You can always call the office 760-579-6789. And you can just simply Google Kelly Bagla. I am pretty much everywhere. But thank you again so much. And it truly is my privilege to support the veterans.
Thank you. And to all of you watching, thank you so much. And keep sharing this episode. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.